We will call the Sawyer County Administration Committee meeting to order, please. Madam Clerk, may we have roll call?
Reed Schuman,
Here.
Ron Buckles,
Present.
Dale Schleter,
Here.
Ken Duffy,
Here.
Ron Kinsley.
Sure.
Thank you. Let the record indicate we have a full committee with quorum. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, certification of compliance with open meetings law, please.
This meeting has been noticed to the public and anything as required by section 19.4 of the Wisconsin statutes.
Thank you. Meeting agenda has been presented. Number 6, public comment. I have one paper turned in, please. Linda Zilmer.
Linda Zilmer, 902 Holly Hill Lane, Birchwood, Edgewater property owner. I'm not sure how in-depth this discussion will be on agenda item 14, but I do want to mention that over the years, since the Ethics Committee was first created and was identified in the board policy and procedures, I and other members of the public, property owners and residents of Sawyer County have submitted complaints to go before the Ethics Committee, and they've resulted in no responses. So from the public's perspective, the board policy and procedures say that there's supposed to be an Ethics Committee. I have requested a process and was not provided one other than to submit an email request. And again, both my requests and requests from other members of the public have basically been ignored. So I hope you do develop a process, and it includes acknowledgement and a response as to whether something will go before the committee or not. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment? Mike, can you be online? All right, moving on to number 7, approval of meeting minutes, June 9, 2022.
I'll make a motion to approve, Mr. Chair, as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Buckles, second by Mr. Duffy. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 8, county clerk update on August primary election. Madam Clerk.
Yeah, just a couple notes. The August election is coming quickly. There's a couple things that you might just want to be aware of in case you hear about it in your municipalities. The Supreme Court of Wisconsin ruled that the unmanned drop boxes are illegal, so we will not be using drop boxes. We are not getting any guidance from the state on this, but go ahead.
How about ballots that are already out in the mail? They're gonna be void.
No, they can be dropped off. They can, in the mail, they can be mailed or delivered in person to the clerk's office.
Thank you.
Yep, you bet.
Good question.
We met our absentee ballot delivery date to municipal clerks on 6/22. When I was at conference on 6/27, many of the county clerks did not. There's been a shortage of paper. There's been problems with the ballots. We did not get information from WEC in quite a timely manner on a couple of the races, so our proofings were delayed, but we met our deadline, so we were happy with that. The June 2024 conference for Wisconsin County Clerks Association is going to be coming to Hayward. I asked, they put up a call on whoever wanted to host it, so it will be coming to Hayward in June of 2024. So we'll have quite a few clerks in the area staying for 3 days. And then the last thing is that I've been getting some emails from a couple of clerks. There are some groups that are going to municipal meetings and requesting some Gannon equipment. So just be aware that there's some activity trying to go back to paper ballots, which requires all hand counting. We're just hearing some scuttlebutt about that. So it's out there. Machines are required in all municipalities. They have to be HAVA compliant. They have to be programmed, up and ready. And if anyone wants to use them, they have to be made available. So it is a requirement by the federal.
And Madam Clerk, the primary date is August 9th.
Second Tuesday, is that August 9th?
Yeah.
8th and 9th,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, thank you. Any
So
questions
when
for the clerk?
the sheriff is the only one on the ballot.
Sheriff and clerk of courts for local races.
Yes, Mr. Schluger?
Lynn, they have to have the electronic voting.
Equipment.
Do they have to have ballots also?
Well, the equipments are two different kinds in Sawyer County. We all went to new equipment this past year, either the ICX, which is an electronic punch,
Yeah.
touch screen, and the ICE machine, which is the paper ballot tabulator, where you can fill in the ovals. So not everyone will have paper ballots. ICX will not.
But that's okay, that's not
Yep.
required. All right.
That's not required.
Okay, anything else?
I just want to mention them new machines that the municipalities got are really top notch.
Good.
I like it. I mean, they're so easy once they explain it to you how to use them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're not hooked up to the internet. in Sawyer County.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. Okay, number 9. Veteran Service Department Report. Gary?
Right, good morning.
Good morning.
The service office in June had 469 phone calls, 305 letters, emails, and faxes, and 117 office visits. Claims submitted for the veterans, 45 disability pension claims specifically. And we received a retro payment as of the end of the month of $192,777.77 for claims decided in the veterans' favor. My training is up to date, and I guess we're pedaling. So,
Thank you. Perfect, Gary. Any questions, concerns for Gary? Committee? Or Kinsley?
I don't believe you were with us in the June meeting. Was there any incidents over the Memorial Day weekend that we should be aware of, or everything's going overall?
Memorial Day weekend, I didn't hear of any incidents. I was here in Hayward for Memorial Day weekend. I was asked to speak at Greenwood Cemetery, and that's where I was. So, and it turned out it was all right, because I tried to rotate my being in different places. Like last year, I was down in the southern part of the county. So this year it ended up I was up here and it worked out. So, but no, I didn't hear of anything bad. The weather held out for us. It was nice. Because it's usually Memorial Day weekend is a pretty good chance of rain, and it did a little bit. But by the time we were doing the ceremonies, it was fine. So,
Gary, still everything looking good in your new office there?
it's work in progress. The maintenance is still busy, getting things ready for Health and Human Services. There's a guy doing windows today, window treatment right now as we speak. Showed up and is doing that. Things have just changed a little bit. I noticed that the parking's gone for where I have the Veterans Park when they go down to Minneapolis, so I'm gonna have to get on that. I didn't know about that, because normally they park over across from the maintenance building, and I know the Senior Resource Center doesn't want us parking there. So I'm gonna have to, I guess, find out where we can get these people for their early morning shows, so they can get on the van and get to Minneapolis and back without having their vehicle towed or whatever. But that's the kind of little stuff that I've been dealing with, just trying to keep up with the changes as they, work construction here and there. So anyway, there's some other things, and it's not necessarily for the board, it's stuff that we have to work, I guess, before we come to the board for operations down there that I can see is going to be an issue right now, and it's not something that can't be fixed fairly easy. I don't believe any of it. So, yep. Other than that, I don't know if it looks nice. I'll be happy, I guess, if I get we're, coming over to the meeting. Like last month, I had veterans come in, and it takes a little bit of time to come over here and then park and then get in here to the meeting. So therefore I didn't come. I would have been way late by the time I got here. And it was basically a walk-in veteran. So my apologies on that. So I guess when we get somebody in there, Health and Human Services, I think they're gonna have somebody up at the front of the building where maybe they can, I don't have to, every time I leave, I gotta lock the building up, basically. I mean, for the most part, I have to lock the building up. So shut everything down, lock it up, leave, come back, unlock it. I get somebody else in there, and that's just, I'm not complaining. It's a fact of life and going through, the construction and all the moving parts. It's not a complaint. I'm just trying to give you a little background. There's more parts and pieces right now than normally is to make sure it's taken care of. So.
Great.
Kind of
Do you have anything
rolling
else for Gary?
Can they meet to get the bus down where you're at now?
We could, we certainly could. And that's, the van, normally we have one van that's in the maintenance building. And that's the one that I have the driver use. So, he shows up, unlocks, goes in, pulls the van out, and usually picks up the people and leaves. And it keeps it, in the wintertime, it's really important. There's not snow or ice on it, and it's warm and it's ready to go. So that's why I say it's just little things that we're kind of working through right now. But yeah, we certainly could put it down there for now. The only thing that in the back of my mind is I worry about, I've got two vans. The other one I have down at the building for stuff that I need to go do. Like coming to this meeting. But I worry about the hail, I mean, this time of the year, I worry about hail and, vandalism, what have you. So that's why I've kind of kept our spot in the maintenance building. And there's always the risk of not using it and losing it. So.
Mr. Buckles.
How many vehicles at one time, Gary, do you have when they are gonna go over to Minneapolis to park?
Normally one. I had two drivers. One quit. We haven't found anybody that's willing to get up, that can pass a drug test. Okay. And I've had people with drug and alcohol problems, and it's like, so I don't want to do that. But anyway, so I'm down to one driver. And that driver works for us on Monday and Wednesday, or is available for us on Monday and Wednesday if we ever run. He takes the veterans down. And right now, I've just been communicating with our veterans that please put your appointments on a Monday or a Wednesday. In some cases, I'll have people that need to go down for overnight for like a sleep study or what have you. And now I'm in a bind because now I've got a Tuesday or Thursday, I got to get them back. And I've been working with my driver to can you support that or not? If not, I will call over to Washburn County to see if they're running a van that day or the next, the day that veteran needs to come back. And if we can put them on that van to at least get them to Spooner and go from there. And it's usually not, the veterans are, they're usually willing to drive over to the highway department in Spooner or the Quick Trip in Spooner. Those are two pickup points to get on the van. If they don't have a ride, now I'm gonna bind there, so I gotta work something else out. So yeah, I'm like the mass transit guy, so social worker, health and human services, veteran service officer.
Yeah, so usually how many people are there that you have to transport up there? Is that one, two, three?
It varies.
Varies.
Sometimes it's one, sometimes it's three. The max we can take is 5 in the van. There's that many seats with seat belts.
Okay.
But yeah, so far we've been doing okay with the cost and the fuel and the economy. I'm getting increased business.
Yeah, sure.
To go there. Plus, there's construction in the cities right now, which stinks, and some people just don't like driving in the cities anyway, let alone having construction. So there's other things that happen with that. Kind of a long story for a short answer, but at least I'll give you some background.
Thank you.
Yes, sir, you're welcome.
Yep. Thank you, Gary.
Yeah.
Thanks for all you do.
Yeah, you're welcome.
We really appreciate you. Okay, number 10, information technology. Mike?
Okay, couple of the bigger projects we had, we assisted with the jail video system replacement last month. The old server was replaced by a new one. So that's done. They're still working out some of the kinks. This morning, we're working with the consultant, Accurate Controls, to get some sound working again. So for the most part, that project is done. The other project we've been working on is the radio tower, starting law enforcement with that with John Bruck. That's it's up and in the tuning phase right now, so it's not quite live yet. However, we're piggybacking some internet to our airport and highway shop. So yesterday we made a live link. So the airport's landline phone system is finally back fairly stable. So we'll be tuning and tweaking that and then putting the highway component on. I must have forgotten to send my report to them, so, but I did have one.
Can you comment a little bit about why something with our new project is way over budget? Is that with IT or another department? You mind going there, Andy, right?
Well, the one thing that Mike really had to work on was getting the utilities rerouted.
Yeah.
And I think that was just, the number that was put in the budget wasn't a number that came from the providers that had to relocate their
Got it.
services. Can you explain which ones had to be rerouted though?
Yeah, the reroutes were CenturyLink or Lumen, and then Charter Spectrum. So they each came in with a quote, 26,000 for Lumen, about 20,000 for Charter. And we already paid Lumen, we haven't got the Charter bill yet, but I'm sure it'll come. And then the other component was the audio video systems for the new build, North Courtroom, South Courtroom, and Boardroom. They provided a quote, a design quote of $204,000, I think. The parts have since gone up, which really isn't surprising. It's not something they just threw out, but they did forget to include shipping, which was $11,000. And then they said there's an optional fee for annual support, which is, we don't have to take that. So what we're doing now is taking that design and bidding it out to a few other firms. I've gotten a couple of other firms already indicated they're willing to. So I just have to work with them now as quick as possible.
Sure.
Because North Courtroom has to go live in February. So we're going to try to hopefully sign with one of these vendors if we can next month or as soon as possible thereafter, because there's going to be a long lead time for ordering these parts. that go in the courtroom.
Thank you, Mike. Any other questions for Mike?
Just as a comment to what he mentioned about the annual costs for having this service room. I hope nobody told the county that having expanded building wasn't going to have any additional operational costs. It's already within the budget process with finding in additional utility costs, cleaning costs, support
We
costs.
talked about that and nothing was gonna go up.
And I-
Yeah.
I remember
right.
that too.
That's the answer we got.
That was the question we had.
There's no additional personnel needed.
Yep.
And I doubt that we won't see that. in a couple of years.
All right, thank you, Andy. Thank you, Mike. If nothing else, we'll on number 11, then human resources report. Rose?
Good morning.
Morning.
Have my report. We're making headway on our open positions. We hired 6 last month, well, from last meeting to this meeting. Interviewing for driver operator position out at highway on Tuesday. And I guess the only thing I'm going to touch on additionally is the EMS. We have 4 open positions right now. This week, or within the last week, we have received 3 more notices of resignation. So we're going to be up to 7. So we gotta, yes.
Where are these people going?
2 are going to, one's going to medical school, one's going to school for biology, and one is going to another opportunity. Wasn't specific.
two, we could do nothing about, but with increasing the salary, do something about it.
I don't know if that person would stay, but I know increasing the salary, we have interviewed candidates, not many, but a few candidates. Two of them that I can think of that would have come, except the wage was far too low. They wouldn't come. Maybe now they will. And then in jail dispatch, so we have 2 full-time jail openings. We might be getting a third. We have 2 full-time dispatch, and then we need part-time on the road, so. But every county around us is struggling in that area. It just is difficult to recruit.
Okay. Mr. Kinsley.
How many are we interviewing for at the highway shop for driver?
We're down to 2. We had 3 scheduled. Gentleman emailed me today that he has taken a different job. But we did have, I want to say 7 apps.
Oh, yeah. That's better than. Thank you.
Thank you, Rose. Any questions for Rose?
Good work.
Agreed. Okay, number 12, Mr. Andy Alvarado, discussion on this. I think we heard about it in finance, but you want to read right to this committee, please?
Yeah, so there was a request to discuss elected officials' wage options or compensation. So this initially came up when we were discussing the retention payment for county employees. I excluded or did not include elected officials in that because my understanding is that you cannot adjust an elected official's compensation during the term of office that is set at a county level by the board prior to the nomination papers being filed. So that way there's no attempt to up or adjust up or down the wage during the term of office. The elected officials asked me to investigate that further, so I did take that to our corp counsel to get their legal opinion. I did send subsequent to the finance meeting, did forward that email string of our corp counsel discussion to members of the admin and finance committees for review, but we looked at it from a couple different angles and tried to even think creatively on how to do that. And it really is, it's pretty, my interpretation, their interpretation is pretty cut and dry that during the term of office, there's no way to adjust the compensation to the elected officials. But we did talk last meeting about getting another opinion and continuing the discussion at next month's meeting.
Okay. Andy, anything for Andy on number 12? Now we'll move on to number 13, American Rescue Plan Act funding update. Again, Andy, discussion. You want to update this committee, please?
Yeah, we discussed this at the finance committee. The finance committee last month had approved a motion to allocate the balance of the ARPA funds that are remaining to the courthouse remodeling project, which would reduce the amount that we would need to borrow for, or come up with another source for. That action was, I think, best stated, reconsidered at the meeting prior year to, and or I guess the intent was to forward that to the county board this month for consideration. That was reconsidered at the prior meeting. Lynn,
I'm sorry.
what was the motion at the finance committee?
Oh, to use $40,000 of the ARPA funds for helipad and reserve the remaining funds for the building project and bring it to county board. Correct.
So I will, I'll draft up a resolution for that and the chairman to sign for submission to the county board meeting.
Perfect. Any questions, concerns for Andy on that?
Yeah, one question.
Yes, sir. Mr. Kinsley.
Town Draper helipad. Now, providing it goes through the full board, we're gonna get that 40,000. They gonna give us any bills or let us review the bills of what it costs? My main concern is to go out on bids and we might want to review them. I guess without saying too much.
you can make that a condition of them receiving the funds. If you want some type of documentation, the board can make that a condition. I know we're working through that on the broadband grants that we're being in the county. I think I mentioned that in my report. Like a couple of those projects are underway and they'd like to get their money. There was no condition set down by the board as to what the terms should be for disbursement, which is fine. We're asking CLA, who Tom and Mike had signed a contract with them to advise us on ARPA funds, to give us a contract or what things do we need to get from the people who are giving ARPA funds to make sure we meet our obligation to report to the federal government. As far as requiring them to bid it out, imagine you could make that a condition. But we're doing this as lost revenue, so it's their project, we're providing a grant to them.
I guess not so much bid it out, but I want to see the bills to make sure that this money, this is what they spent.
Okay.
And we should be entitled to that, I would think.
Yeah, you can get for, yeah, copies of invoices and project. budget. I can include that.
And I think they said that they had 21,000 towards the project.
Yes.
Yeah.
For the, now this, it's not on the line because I know for the broadband grants, we're providing grants to those entities. They're also, our money was contingent upon them getting the PSC grants, and they have to provide all that. I've asked for that because they have to provide that to the PSC.
But they're not asking you, the county, what you did with their 5,000 that they give back to the county that Draper didn't use. So why would you, Mr. Kinsley, want to see, just because it's Draper, their invoices? It just don't make sense.
Well, Mr. Buckles, one of their board members that wasn't here could be doing the project, and I want to make sure it's done correctly. Billing wise.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying, yeah. I agree with that part of it then, yeah, I can look at it then.
Thank you, folks. Anything else for Andy on number 13? We'll move back to the full county board, correct, Andy?
Yep.
All right, number 14. Ethics complaint process, and we have a draft here of the current language, correct?
Not currently, but your draft of is new language.
New language.
So
Great.
kind of two things happening here. One is when we looked at the board policies procedures, kind of looked at the ethics area because we had somebody at a county board meeting a couple months ago bring up a potential ethics issue. I would say it was not this that time I did not take it as a formal complaint. That might be because in our ethics, code of ethics and the board policies, we outline what an ethics violation would be, or kind of the disclosures that the board should be making, and what else is in there? It goes through what a conflict of interest is, some of the definitions, potential examples of conflict of interest. Those are all in the board policies. What it does not include is how a person formally says, I have a complaint, and the information that you provide does not indicate once that complaint is received, how it was handled, and then the process to follow through on it, which would be something that I think we should have. And also I point out too that there's a code of ethics in the board policies, and then we also have a code of ethics in the employee personnel manual, which they're different. They're not identical language. They don't need to be, but neither one has a process or procedures regarding how a complaint is made. So Lynn and I have worked on putting together a draft for the board to consider. This is the first kick at it. Lynn dug up some other ethics ordinances from other counties. I kind of worked with one that seemed to make sense and put together the draft that you see here, which will be a quick run through. I did highlight a couple areas in it. So I tried to merge what was already in the board policies a little bit, but for the most part, this is borrowed from a few other counties. This would apply. I think the key things I would want to point out here is that it applies to all officials and employees. One policy for elected officials, employees, Anybody on any of our boards, doesn't have to be, if we have appointed citizens, they would fall under it. General requirements so that officials and employees are impartial and responsible to the people. Decisions and policy be made in proper channels, structure. Office is not used for personal gain. We want to retain the public confidence and integrity of local government. That's kind of the goal. And then it goes through the definitions that you'll run into in here. What conduct is related to conflict or code of ethics as far as permissible use of public office. If you ever see anybody charged in court with this type of thing, this is the statute that usually is referenced. Donation, solicitation, or acceptance of negative value, prohibited voting, influence. It's kind of a part log roll. I guess the other term is log roll. Extending a vote for other considerations. Actual reasonable expenses. Not covering additional monetary benefit for things that are undeserved. Additional conduct is in there. Administration then goes into the board. So I believe I found where the ethics board here is 5 members. We appoint 3 county board members, which have been appointed for this term as part of the board appointment process back in April. We also need 2 citizens. That is, I highlighted that because that's one area that is not consistent amongst all counties. Some places it's county board and some citizens, or some county board, employee and some citizens. Some places it's all has to be 5 public members, not on any board or committee. So that's one area that I think could be go either way. The complaint process, some have it right to the corp counsel is the secretary and assistant to the ethics board. Kind of added into ours since we don't have at the current time a corp counsel in the building, that if a violation or complaint comes in, it should come to the administrator or the clerk, and then we forward it to corp counsel. If one of us is the subject of the complaint, then the county board chair would be the next person in line. But it all leads back to the corp counsel being the consultant to the ethics board, and the rest of us being staff to them. It outlines the complaint, who's the complainant, who's the complaint about, what's the policy or provision that potentially has been violated, and then any supporting information. It goes through a timeline for consideration, or I guess notice to the complaints we received, and a notice to who the complaint is about. It goes through the hearing process, the investigation, potential violation and penalties. If it's an employee, officer or employee. First thing is to, depending on the severity, I'm assuming would be to conform the conduct to the code of ethics. If it's an employee or official, it could be censured, suspended, removed from office or employment, or the disciplinary action. Could be a civil forfeiture, or if it's severe enough, refer the matter to the district attorney. If anybody ever has any advisory opinions are included, because if you have some situation that an employee or official is presented with, you're wondering if it's an ethics violation, you can ask for an opinion. Disclosure is something the board already does, is fill out its conflict of interest statement at the start of your term. That's in here as a potential requirement. And obviously, no retaliation for filing of ethics complaints. So that's a draft for you to chew on. I think we should get something in place so that we have a process that these things come up, they're handled.
So we'll bring this back next month with any edits we might have or thoughts.
Yep.
So we have a lot of things coming back that soon to come to the full board for approval.
Yeah,
Is that you kind of building on that?
and some of these will tie back into the code of ordinances. Some of these things should be our policies that could be codified, that way they're the ordinances for everybody to be aware of. I know we had talked about the board policy procedure, getting that back to this month's meeting, but most of the committees want to take the responsibility.
Sure.
Next month, so probably.
So we'll bring it all back.
Yeah.
I like that. Okay. Any questions for Andy here? Sounds like we're gonna get another month to review this and bring it to Madam Clerk and Andy for changes, suggestions? Can you get with that? Yes. Mr. Kinsley? Mr. Duffy?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
Are you gonna respond to those who have pitched? So,
Yeah,
Yes,
I
I
was just
know
gonna bring
maybe
that up.
more.
So we do have, I believe, Mr. Duffy received an email following up on an ethics complaint that is out there. I think I will contact that person and follow up and see if they want to wait or if they want us to move ahead. But we might have to do kind of an ad hoc process to address the complaint that's out there right now.
Gotcha. All right, number 15, board policy. procedure
board
manual.
policy
This has been
procedure
on every
manual, yep.
committee agenda, correct?
Yep, it's been on every agenda. Administration was one of those that did not have any roles and responsibilities outlined in the policy procedures manual. So for those committees, either just like zoning wasn't listed in there, it's there, but they have the zoning bylaws, so we're just gonna reference the bylaws. Human Services Board, they have their own bylaws, so we can reference those. For the other committees, like Public Works and Administration, I just tried to draft something for you to have a starting point to go through. Really, you can start over or tear it apart or give me feedback. Guess I can just run through that. This committee is to develop, guide, and implement policies that address overall management, coordination, and operation of county government, including county administration and administrative support functions. The composition has already been established. It's the board chair and vice chair, 3 additional board members appointed by the chair, confirmed by majority of the board. It's the committee of jurisdiction for administration, human resources, veteran services, and information technology. Primary responsibilities. Some of these I've kind of made consistent to the committees, but it's address policy related to administrative and operational elements, human resources issues and policy, approve the personnel policy manual changes and forward as needed to board for approval. Retain and maintain board policies like the board policy procedures manual and make recommendations to the board of updated or new policies. Review budgets for the department subject to the committee's jurisdiction. Provide recommendations to the administrator about those changes. That's one that's consistent amongst a few of the committees. Same thing with approving contracts and agreements specific to the departments involved. Deal with all other issues of policy raised by departments subject to the committee's jurisdiction, while avoiding interfering with day-to-day operations of the county. Receive monthly reports from the department subject to the committee's jurisdiction. Approve annual goals, objectives, and long-range plans for departments and counties subject to the committee's jurisdiction. And approve grant requests for departments subject to the committee's jurisdiction, where such approval is required by the grantor. It's just kind of something as a starting point.
I don't know, looks good to me, Andy.
We'll bring that back then next month for approval.
Sounds good. If you have any changes
Sounds
or
great.
things you want to add, let me know and I can bring back an updated copy for the next one's meeting.
Great. And I can't emphasize enough, Andy, the grants position in department. And as I think we recently saw what the tribe has done at getting from their grant department, it's just amazing. So thank you for that. All right, number 16, county administrator's report, sir.
Yeah, just a quick run through that. I'm sorry, just with all the other committees this week, a lot of it seems to happen in the committee that I ended up wanting to include in the report. So still working on the corp council and managing that relationship. I know Mr. Buckholz had asked some questions last month, and I talked to the chairman yesterday about next month, giving you a complete rundown of the things our corp council has been doing. We have actually a smaller list. We're knocking some things out. A lot of it's land use issues, zoning is a hot area every month.
Yeah.
Open records meetings, interpretation of state statute have been the most frequent items. I've tried to filter all those requests through me. I mean, I know Jay is always kind of working with them right for the meeting. Lynn has had some things, but I just happy to tell you that invoice for June is we can keep it at that amount. That's full-time in-house corp council costs way more than that.
That was my next question. Are we want to rate someone in full time? even if you bring someone full-time, you're not gonna be able to handle everything. And we can get expertise help outside to help, but it's
Yeah.
something I think we should constantly look at.
Yeah, I'm keeping an eye on that. And the good thing with the firm is that it's not a huge firm right now. We know Andy Phillips. I talked to him about, I like Andy, but he's been doing a good job of making sure the other staff are doing the things they can do. So we're at this point familiar with Kylie and Jake, and they all kind of, one is really good at open meetings. We had a human health hazard issue in public health. That was a different attorney that had done that work for another county. So just trying to control the cost though by filtering things, and some things like the ethics thing, rather than saying, hey, we need an ethics policy. I like to start with drafting something that you guys can work on, and then we can give them, and they can just make small changes to it.
Andy. What is the price difference on the virtual, depending on the virtual or if they were in person? Is it a lot?
I have to go back and look at the invoices.
See, that's just one of my concerns. I mean, I have nothing against Andy Phillips, does a good job, but I believe a lot of times that I'm speaking for on the zoning issue is having court counsel there and in person. That's just I've always, ever since I've been on zoning, and we've always had it that way. In person, once in a while when Rebecca was there, she was on virtual, but now that we don't have her or we have Andy, he's just been on virtual. So I guess I'm wondering what the cost difference is, but
Okay.
I'm sure there's some.
Yeah, there'll be some travel costs.
Yes.
Travel. I can try to pin that.
Okay.
Board policies covered that already, covered the code of ethics that's in there. Discussed the vacancies, and we have, Rose has been filling a lot of those with department heads. Meal and mileage reimbursements at the finance meeting, brought forward proposals to adjust those. Those haven't been adjusted in quite a while, just to get it more in line with what it actually costs for meals and travel these days. Still want to encourage employees to take the county vehicles for not giving them a full IRS reimbursement. Muni code is kind of slow going because we've been working on the other board policies and code of ethics items. So still going through that, trying to get everything in there that's hanging out there. I think we've talked about the courthouse renovation enough. Broadband, I've talked about that. Opioid, I was in finance. The option for securitization is something that the county will have the option at. The new ARPA, you'll see at the county board meetings, some updated lease templates for the airport, along with new leases for 2 of the hangars. 23 budget process is underway. It's just too early to give you a real feel for how it's going to come in. At least a few departments I've kind of had discussions with as they've been preparing them. There's been no major surprises, which would be great if we stay that way.
Andy, how do you feel about a 2022 budget surplus? You see that?
Don't know that, to be honest with you.
Okay, because I know we were doing a sales tax from Janine.
Yep.
Earlier, and it looks like we're tracking now,
We were
kind of consistent with
yeah,
21.
well, we're ahead of last year. So we were ahead like month over month. It was this much at the start of the year, and it's kind of going like that as we get into.
This is what made the numbers closer together.
Is that?
We made the numbers closer together.
Oh.
That's why it's not this big. I'm kidding.
Because we're able to do some things because of that surplus.
We are, and we're above what has been budgeted, which is good.
Yeah.
Probably because I'm just a skeptic or conservative. I hear things like resorts are seeing more cancellations than they have in prior years. The cost of gas, people are cutting back on the number of trips they're taking. I wonder how that's gonna play out. I think when you look at the consumer confidence index, there's pulling back of spending, which will affect sales tax.
Sure.
I don't know that we have a real clear picture because it was simultaneous with COVID and the collection of e-sales.
Yeah.
Sales tax. Like,
Right.
what was the big bump? Was that from COVID or was that from people having child tax care credits to spend and money? What are those called? Stimulus checks.
Yeah.
That was about the same time the e-sales started coming back to counties. So.
And if we can get some movement from the resolution you're proposing regarding funding, right, that program?
That, that'll. If anything were to change, it wouldn't change until 2024 because the legislature's not back in session until next year.
Got it.
Potentially part of the next budget cycle, they would take that up. But, I mean, there's no reason to ring alarm bells. I just don't know if we'll have a surplus. I wouldn't anticipate a surplus like we had from last year or similar to last year, but I mean, we met with Human Services. They're not showing anything that's out of line within their budget. That's usually the biggest wild card. So I am resuming with monthly department head meetings. I think those are going to be important to just to give you an idea of the things I was covering with them this last month was 22 budget, 23 budget process, kind of getting everybody informed of the construction project. For those departments not directly involved, it seemed like they were a little in the dark on timelines and some things. We've done the update on hiring and staffing. We are having some discussions on flexible or alternate scheduling. Departments are hearing this from their counterparts in other counties, and you might be hearing about this from the meetings, but there are, like, Price County is the closest one. They are talking about, or I would say talking, I think they approved from Memorial Day to Labor Day and potentially year-round closing their courthouse at noon on Fridays. Because there's just not as much business. They're looking at it as a retention item to allow employees to work 4 days a week, do 10-hour days. We already have a number of departments here on alternate to flexible scheduling, depending on their work and the type of work they do. So I'm just trying to get a feel for that. I don't see, I mean, with the type of tax base we have and the individuals, I don't see us reducing any hours here. I don't think that's it's not an alternate to me, but can we give departments some flexibility on how they schedule staff to maintain the office hours and the counter time that they have already at a minimum, but rotate their staff so there's a 9 out of 10 days or that type of thing.
Did we learn something during COVID where didn't some people work from home?
I'm just trying to get a handle on what's happening already, so it's not. I don't know what they're trying to say nilly-willy.
Yeah.
I want to have some standards that we all have to follow.
Okay.
I believe there's people still working from home, not in Sawyer County, I don't think, but
Right.
you hear people working from home, yeah.
I talked about corp counsel and just reiterating to the department heads to run that through me, unless I already know that they're working with them. Grant writing, I covered that with the departments. First Amendment auditors, that's, I don't know, really didn't involve the board too much in that discussion, but I'm not sure if you're aware of the idea of First Amendment audits. But I'd say they're citizens take it upon themselves to monitor government. And one of them that has a YouTube channel came through Wisconsin last month. Showed up in Eau Claire, Wood County, Appleton. Basically, they walk into your government facility and around it with a video camera and try to get access to areas and try to get employees on camera. They're trying to get a reaction out of staff by not wanting to be filmed. They actually have a complete right to come into the building and film all public areas. So just kind of got our staff up to speed on that happens. Here's how you react. Here's the things we need to do to prepare for that. And also talked about some of my priorities as far as digital government. Mr. Buckle said, work from home options. I haven't asked GIS or land records to give me a percentage, but I'm assuming here 75% of our property owners live outside the county. So making sure we have as much services online, our lives easier and theirs. Mike's doing a good job getting Laserfish out to departments so that we can start getting all of our records digitized. That's the trend we want to continue with. And then just a culture discussion on improving the workplace culture. Part of that's the scheduling, but part of it's just engaging with the employees and understanding what they're looking for out of their work experience. It's not always, it can't be all about their paychecks, so also we needing to improve in the environment.
The GIS program is just wonderful out there. So much off of that.
Where's carbon credit? Carbon credits, we had that on the land and water. We're proceeding with negotiating, but we're also engaging with another company to give us that proposal.
Good. Anything for Mr. Andy?
You know, I was saying, tweet with the housing shortage in the county, it's nice to know the governor was here and made some funds available to the tribe for a new project. When is that gonna start? Any idea?
They're breaking ground this fall.
Really?
Yep. And they're making it a 40 apartment building complex, 2-story, near the casino and the school and the daycare. It's
Where are they located?
Schoolhouse Road. By their behavioral health building, between there and the water tower.
Yeah.
And that grant they were awarded is for the infrastructure.
Yeah.
For the water and sewer to pick up that building. And it's also gonna pick up the casino and the behavioral health, all on a system.
Yeah.
On a water sewer system, so it was huge. And there's other money coming available, he mentioned it there. And there were people from the paper, Frank was there and interviewed Governor Evers. And that there's more money available, that's why I mentioned grants and whatever we need and are looking at.
Economic development, we talked about the grants and everything else, and there wasn't much interest so far signing up for the first session. I don't know what we can do to get people involved, but it seems like it's an opportunity that we're missing. If we don't.
And at Health and Human Services, Tom, we got a pretty good public health team that is looking at grants and getting ready
Yeah.
for the opioid money that might be coming, competitive grants.
Yeah.
So that's a start, that team looks good.
I'm hoping others can feed off of that because there's getting, we have to pay a little bit, but they're getting an additional position through AmeriCorps that will be a person dedicated to researching and writing grants for primarily for public health, but that should set an example.
But should we think about maybe hiring someone just for grants like the LCO does? You know, everyone seems too busy to take that extra burden on, but
And I keep continuing to look at that. We either, I'm talking to department heads about this, that, maybe not jumping into hiring somebody, but if they have grants that we can pursue, can we contract? There's a number of contract entities that we could hire just to write
Grants.
specific grants rather than jumping into committing to a full-time person.
Okay, anything else for Andy and his county administrator's report?
This, one thing not in there, I wanted to mention, just for you guys, as far as negotiations for the next law enforcement contract, probably looking at the end of August. We did receive, there's 2 things happening. One, we received notice that they wanted to open negotiations from the union. We also simultaneously received notice that the union is going to have an election on switching representation. Going from WPPA to somebody else. So we told them, figure that out, and we'll talk about it.
Sure.
We'll start negotiations.
All right, thank you, Andy.
Keep up the good work, Andy. Nice job.
Yeah, we appreciate you, Andy.
Happy beers.
Okay, some future agenda items.
So far we have, the ethics complaint policy will come back, as well as board policy and procedure, those will come back.
Yeah. And that'll include the language for public comment, all those things.
Yep, all the things we talked about last month have been changed.
Good.
Are in the new draft. let me say it that way.
And as kind of as soon as you get all those together, you'll distribute them to the board so they can have time to. Good. Clerk, you're good then with future agenda items? Board have anything that we're not addressing that we should be? Correspondence? Any other matters for discussion? Not, we are adjourned. Thank you all.